Hi, this is the Sports Show as presented by the Denver Post. I'm Woody Paige. We will spend the next hour with you talking about and discussing and debating and arguing about, of course, the big game coming up between the Denver Broncos and the New England Patriots. And as it gets closer, I think the discussion gets more heated and more talked about. Let me start you with the big stuff. The war of the words has begun. You know that the Broncos have sort of started it. I wouldn't call it ultimate trash talking, but there has been talk about Tom Brady being a whiner, a crybaby. Antonio Smith following up some of the statements he made about Ben Roethlisberger last week. There have been others. Chris Harris has talked about Gronk and the way that you attack him is to go after his knees. Brandon Marshall talks about Gronk pushing off on every play, and he does get called for offensive pass interference more than all of the other New England Patriots combined. And Gronk has responded in a bunch of different sort of double entendre ways. Tom Brady has not really addressed the subject. He just kind of brushed it off. And for the most part, though, this has been a lot calmer than a lot of AFC championship games. So you've got the Denver Broncos hosting the New England Patriots. It last happened in the AFC championship in 2012, 2 years ago, when the Broncos went to the Super Bowl. Number two in our big stuff today is 2.13 seconds. What does that mean? That's not the Bonneville Salt Flats record for speed. That's how often and how quickly Tom Brady gets the ball off. And you know as well as I do that he's going to throw the football. He's not going to run the football, either him or Steven Jackson during the course of this week. And number three on our list, what is the future for Peyton Manning? And I kind of will go over with you all of the options that I think are available to him. And we'd like to get you involved, and you can tweet us and give us your opinion about what you think Peyton Manning is going to do next year. I'm going to give you 5 or 6 different options. You can either think of one of your own or tell us whether you think he's coming back or whether he is going off to play for another team or what else might he do in his life. So all of that coming up on the Sports Show as we spend the next hour with you. You can go to our Facebook page, The Sports Show. You can tweet us at The Sports Show, or you could actually become a co-host today by Skyping us at _Sports Show. We'll take a break. This segment brought to you by Cooney Lexus of Greenwood Village. Your place to go for Lexus. It's Colorado's #1 Lexus dealership.
Hello, my name is Greg Stone, President and General Manager, and I would like to personally thank you for making Cooney Lexus of Greenwood Village the #1 Lexus dealer in Colorado.
Cooney Lexus of Greenwood Village for exceptional customer service and world-class amenities. Take in the beauty of the Rocky Mountains from our rooftop patio. Relax while enjoying a movie in our premium theater. This is the ultimate luxury car buying experience. Visit Cooney Lexus of Greenwood Village or Cooney Lexus of Colorado Springs. Click CooneyLexus.com.
This is the Sports Show, and as I said, we've got a lot of debate ahead, but let me kind of give you a rundown of what's going on in Boston on that side. Dan Shaughnessy, who is a good friend of mine for a long time and has been a friend of the show and been on the show over the past year or so, wrote that nobody in Boston respects Peyton Manning, that not one person respects Peyton Manning. And our co-host is just kind of wandered there. We'll get to him. Yeah, we've been on for about 5 minutes waiting on you, but that's okay. It's television. So as I was saying, Shaughnessy says that nobody in Boston respects Peyton Manning anymore. The Boston Herald says in a headline, Peyton has no chance versus Tom. So the question we'll lay on the floor for you and Nate Kreckman when he does arrive is that whether or not that's going to have any effect on this game. Are they right in Boston? Should Peyton Manning be respected or just treated like some rag doll? Will Peyton be motivated by the talk that's going on? We'll talk about all of that. We've got trending now, 4 on the floor, pick 6, and everything else coming up. This segment brought to you by John Elway Chevrolet on South Broadway. It's Colorado's #1 Chevrolet dealership.
When you go to buy a car, what do you really want? You probably want a lot of cars to choose from. And you want the dealership's best price. Not some starting price or target price, the best price. And you want it immediately, not after hours of negotiating. And you want a salesperson who doesn't get paid more if you spend more. Because, well, you don't want to spend more. Well, you're in luck. John Elway wants all of those things too. Better yet, John Elway wants you to have all of those things too. Come see us or click on johnelwaychevrolet.com.
For our Players' Choice pizzas, we made the NFL players' favorite pizzas. Now you can eat like an NFL player.
If I can eat like a football player, I can talk like one, I can work out like one, I can even dress like one.
Look, you can eat the pizza. You just can't steal my shorts.
Up your game with any large specialty pizza, including Players' Choice pizzas. Only $12 each.
Better ingredients, better pizza.
Better football.
At the new papajohns.com.
Woody Paige with you, and along with me joining us today, and we've got a special surprise, and it was almost a real surprise that he didn't show up.
No, I'm here. I'm here.
Nate Kreckman
Don't you
is
worry
here
about
joining
me.
us, and late, I don't mean that in a bad way, but long time with ESPN Radio here, now doing weekends with the Fan, and
yes.
I assume you've got a lot of other plans ahead, and as you told me in the last time that we actually sat down and talked, you do a lot with the Mountain West Conference.
I do.
You do a lot with a bunch of different college football.
I do.
You've got a little bit of time here. But,
college hoops as well. It's all, yes, I do it all, man.
And there's a lot going on. Before we get into the show, there's a lot going on in Sports Talk Radio here and ESPN Radio.
That's what they tell me.
But Stan Kroenke's bought 3 stations. Clear Channel and KOA is doing an AM station. The Fan is alive. Mile High Sports is alive. I assume you'll be popping up not only on Saturdays, and I heard you last Saturday, but you'll be popping up on a bunch of other stations. And
I hope that's the case, yes. But for now, weekends on the Fan. I'll be on this Saturday, 10 to 1:30.
You doing anything leading up also on Sunday to the Super Bowl? Or
I'll be eating snacks and getting ready to watch the game.
Well, I'm sure that we'll get you back involved in this, or maybe you come out and join us in San Francisco if the Broncos go out there. Gerald Mayo has been placed on IR. He was at one time a serious leader of the team. He was a first-round draft choice. He was a guy who was a linebacker that was captain of the team, but he's drifted into the background. Collins and Hightower really have become the prominent linebackers there. He's been placed on IR. Do you think they'll really have any issues at linebacker before going into this game with the Broncos?
They still got Collins and Hightower, right? Those guys are.
And they're both, but we should mention, forgive me, but that Collins has been hurt a bit. He was hurt a bit in the last game, but he's going to play. We know that. Hightower
championship weekend, though, isn't everybody hurt right now?
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of, at best, you're 70% right now. They have those two. They're both really, really good. They'll go with Freeney, I believe, is the backup who now replaces Mayo, fourth-year guy out of Rutgers. They're going to be fine. I don't think Gerard Mayo is the difference between the Patriots winning or losing this game.
Yeah, and I thought when the two teams played before here in Denver and the Broncos won in overtime, that the loss of Hightower was actually worse than anything else that happened in New England, including Gronk being injured the last 8-10 minutes of the game and into overtime, because Hightower was doing a great job not only putting pressure on but making tackles, and Brandon Marshall goes for that long touchdown run in overtime. I thought the loss of Hightower and the loss of Hightower down the stretch for the Patriots was as important as anything happened to them. Would you agree?
Yeah, Hightower he's that kind of player. He's that good. I mean, we knew what a stud that dude was coming out of college.
I wanted the Broncos to draft him. That was the number one guy that I had on my list.
He's one of those guys that he kind of makes your defense go. He's, we talk about defensive injuries. I wonder about the Chris Harris thing for the Broncos, and it had a serious effect last week against Pittsburgh. Hightower, to me, is that kind of linchpin player for their defense. Gerard Mayo, would Belichick rather have him? Yeah, absolutely. Of course, he would rather have him, but that's not a killer for them.
Let's take that a little step further. The Broncos defense considered number one overall, but number two.
Numbers say they're number one overall too.
Pardon me?
Numbers say they're number one overall too.
But the Patriots were number two in sacks. They have been more impressive in terms of putting pressure on quarterbacks. That in a game like this, when you got two quarterbacks that get the ball off quicker than anybody else in the game. Brady has been timed during the course of the season at 2.13 seconds. Is the Broncos pass rush going to be effective enough to get to him?
It's going to be neutralized a little bit. And how do you neutralize a guy that releases the ball that quickly if you're the Broncos? Well, you got to do the opposite of what you did last week against Pittsburgh. You got to get away from the zone coverage that we saw. And Aqib Talib, we saw how far off the football that he was. They didn't want to get beat deep last week. Well, what the Patriots are going to do, everything is going to be short. They have Edelman, they have Amendola, they have Gronkowski. Everything is going to be short. Therefore, you get to the line of scrimmage, you play aggressive press man, and you try and disrupt them in that way. You can't sit back in a zone. But in terms of the pass rush, I mean, is Brady going to be going out of the shotgun and taking 7-step drops and dancing in the pocket? Well, if he does too much of that, Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware are going to make it rough on him, right?
I'm going to run you through a few things we were talking about before we went on the air.
Yeah.
You just alluded to one of them. We were saying that actually the Broncos' past history under Peyton Manning, hurry up offense.
Right.
What I call the hurry up and wait, because they would
stand at the line of scrimmage and do the histrionics. Right.
Actually, the Patriots will probably be the team that is running a hurry up offense, and the Broncos will be trying to slow the ball, the control of the clock down. Do you see it that way, Nate?
Of course they have to. You have to be able to run the football. You got to play keep away from Tom Brady. The good news is C.J. Anderson, the last couple of weeks, he's kind of started to look like the C.J. Anderson that we saw last 8 games of last year. I mean, CJ looked really, really good. Therefore, you have to play some keep away, keep the ball away from Tom Brady.
Except we've got a coach in Gary Kubiak. When I say we, the city of Denver has a coach in Gary Kubiak that is still convinced that Ronnie Hillman is the starter and he's going to split it all the time. CJ Anderson, there were people in the press box right next to me. I won't mention their names, but their initials are Troy Rink. Kept saying, "You got to put C.J. Anderson in. You got to put C.J. Anderson in." He just seems committed to running both of them, even though C.J. Anderson's harder to tackle, is getting the better long runs. Are you with Kubiak?
Let me play devil's advocate. Let me be Gary's guy here for a second. One of the things that CJ has shown throughout this season is the more that he gets the football and the more that he runs the football, the quicker he gets banged up. That's the number one criticism of CJ Anderson. He doesn't stay healthy. He gets nicks and bruises, and all of a sudden CJ's waving, and he's going to the sideline.
That even happened against Pittsburgh.
It did. I don't think Gary Kubiak trusts C.J. Anderson. Now, C.J.'s running the ball really, really well, but if you're Gary Kubiak, you have a system in place by which, and I think the numbers last week, it was C.J. had 15 and Ronnie had 16 carries. It was almost 50-50. Okay, well, Ronnie doesn't look to be as effective when he's running the ball as C.J., but if we're to tilt those numbers, if we go back to a system by which C.J. Anderson is a 20-carry back and Ronnie Hillman is a 10-carry back, do you start to get diminishing returns out of C.J. a little bit? Do we reach a point where he's suddenly not as effective? Has maybe Kubiak found a nice, delicate balance by which C.J. can be productive and Ronnie can be a change of pace and he'll break the occasional 10, 12-yard run?
Well, let me take the other side.
Okay.
New England Patriots have just totally given up on. I mean, they just have forsaken the run.
We had 5 carries by backs last week. 5.
Yeah, and they've got a guy in Jackson that looks like he's
old.
You don't have to watch him in slow motion on a replay because he's already in slow motion.
He's old.
I mean, they're going to throw the ball 50 times.
Right.
I mean, they came close last week. That was my prediction to Mark Kisler one day. I said he's going to throw it 50 times. I think they're going to throw it 50 times here. If you're the Denver Broncos, you just sell out on the run. The Broncos are good against the run. Well, here we got a situation. The Patriots are good against the run.
Yeah.
The Broncos are good against the run. The Patriots aren't going to run. The Broncos are going to try and run.
How many times is Brady going to throw? What do we set the number at? 47, 48, 50?
Over under 50.
Yeah.
Would you take over or under?
I take over right now. I think if they scripted out their first 15 plays, I think their last 11 against first 11 against Kansas City were all throws. That is what they do, and they kind of use a lot of that short passing game as their version of the run game. So you'll see those quick hits especially to Gronkowski and Edelman. That kind of replaces what they do in a run game. But yeah, I'm not stacking the box against Tom Brady. No.
Nate Kreckman is with us. We are talking on the Sports Show. It's presented by the Denver Post. Check out Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic because sexual issues can be symptoms of other more complicated, serious conditions: diabetes, strokes, heart attacks, high blood pressure, prostate issues, stress, obesity, and a variety of other issues. I have all of them. They can lead to sexual problems. They can lead to general health problems. At Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic, they have a diagnostic ultrasound, testosterone, PSA testing system, all to get you back into business and to get you in better health, not only just your sexual health. So contact Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic at 720-440-7900 or go to RockyMountainMen'sClinic.com.
Is a lack of intimacy at home starting to affect your performance on the course? There are many factors like high blood pressure, diabetes, and high cholesterol that may be contributing to your erectile dysfunction. Get back in the game with one visit to Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic, offering same-day solutions for all erectile dysfunction and premature issues. And you get to try the medications containing FDA ingredients right in their office. Let the providers at Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic help you get your confidence back. And be sure to ask about the $99 limited time special. Call today.
I'm going to save this for later on.
Okay.
I'm not going to let you get off the hook.
Okay.
But the question is now, are you committed one way or other on Wednesday about how this game is going to wind up?
I went on Boston radio today, earlier today, and I made a prediction, and it was a huge letdown for them, if that serves as any sort of tease for you.
Yeah. Well, if I had to pick today, I think I would go on that Boston radio station with you and say the same thing. But the one good thing is, and we'll invite you to call in on Friday.
Okay.
And you can recommit to that. But before we go off the air today, you can tell us exactly why. I'm going to get into that a little deeper.
Yeah.
I feel like it's going to come down to three things. In this, I sound like somebody on television. Or
are they going to turn the football over? Can they run the football? And what's going to be the third one?
Yeah, well, time of possession.
Okay, all right, yeah, that's good. That's huge for Denver.
Field position.
Okay.
Because we've seen the Broncos really fail during the course of the season when they're backed up all the time.
Yeah, that's no good for them.
And they had an opportunity against Pittsburgh in several different occasions with a bad punter.
Yeah.
A guy who just spit the bed, no other way to put it, and they still couldn't score touchdowns. So let's take those three categories and discuss them. Turnovers. The Broncos are -4 for the year. The Patriots are always one of the leaders in turnover advantage.
Yeah, they take
They
care of the
don't
ball.
fumble the ball.
Yeah.
And if you're not running it, and I had a thought this morning that I think one of the reasons why they love passing the football is they have such dependable receivers who don't fumble it. Brady doesn't fumble it.
Okay.
So you don't have to give it to running backs who are going to fumble it. C.J. Anderson and Ronnie Hillman have had 3 in the last 2 games.
Both
3
have coughed
fumbles.
up the ball, yes.
So how critical do you think turnovers are going to be? Because there was only one,
they're huge.
as it turned out, in
they're
the Pittsburgh
huge.
game, and the Broncos won.
Yeah, turnovers are huge. Yeah, and that turnover that the Broncos got in that game that got him the football for the winning drive, for the go-ahead, finally. Yeah, turnovers are going to be huge in this game. Look, the Broncos, they don't have a bunch of offensive firepower. They're not going to score 30-plus points in this game. This team is not capable of being able to do that. The entire key is, yes, don't turn the ball over. Play good field position. Trust in your defense. It's the best defense in football. The only way the Broncos win this game is if their defense is allowed to carry them and their offense is opportunistic, and hopefully rather than 5 McManus field goals, you can get 3 McManus field goals and you turn 2 of those into touchdowns. But I don't trust the Broncos to do that, which again gets back to why turnovers are so critical.
Time of possession. Is that going to be a factor? Because we know that New England's going to run the hurry-up offense the whole game. The Broncos are going to try and slow it down. So that would indicate that, let's say it's a close-knit game, that it is in the 20s. That's where I would think it would be.
That's where I have it.
That the Broncos would probably have time of possession longer. Is that going to make a difference then?
Well, it will, because I think that means they're going to be running the ball. The Broncos are, they're 7-0 when they run for at least 130 yards. Okay, well, that's a nice little benchmark and a nice convenient little statistic.
But let me respond. I got to respond.
So you got to run the ball.
So, and I hate those.
And then you have better time of possession.
But if you take away the one good C.J. Anderson run, he had two. One was called back because of a Schofield holding.
Yeah.
But if you take that away, they ran 27 times for like 70 yards. That's no good. So if they're running the football and they're not getting at least a good long play or a medium-sized play every once in a while,
you don't bust that big play unless you remain committed to the run. That's kind of what this offense is supposed to do. It is supposed to be an offense where, you know what, a run that in the first quarter might be maybe a no-gain run, because we've seen a ton of those from the Broncos, or a 1 or 2 yard run. And then hopefully second quarter it's a 3 or 4 yard run, and hopefully in the third quarter, and then in the fourth quarter, that's when you bust it.
Well,
that's when you hit the big play. We've seen it a bunch.
That's where this is the Dan Reeves philosophy, and that's why John Elway and Dan Reeves never got along. Dan Reeves said, let's play it close and let's try and win in the fourth quarter. I listened again to Gary Kubiak. He said, what we want to be is we want to make the big play in the fourth quarter. And I thought, that's basically what their game plan is.
They've been doing a lot of that.
Boy, if that doesn't happen, if you get behind New England like you did before, why did the Broncos get back into the game against New England? Because New England had a fumble in the snow.
But you tell me this. What do you think is going to happen if Peyton Manning drops back and throws 45 times? What do you think that game ends up looking like?
Well, they're going to be behind. They're going to be behind by a lot.
He's going to throw interceptions. He's going to turn the ball over. Gary Kubiak is kind of put into a little bit of a trap by his bad offense, by his bad offensive line, by his receivers that he can't trust to catch the ball, and by his 39-year-old quarterback with a noodle arm. So as such, you have to play a conservative brand of football by which your defense keeps it close and you can make a play in the fourth quarter. If you get into a shootout with Tom Brady and the Patriots, that point spread isn't nearly big enough that I'm looking at right now. You have to be conservative.
All of our live guests, and Nate qualifies, are here courtesy of Papa John's. And today is the Broncos 18 special. If that sounds familiar to you, it's because the starter for the Broncos wears number 18, and he's actually involved with Papa John's. Papa John was here and on the big screen on Sunday.
No way.
He was here, waving to the crowd.
In Denver, all right.
2 large, 3-topping pizzas for $18. That's online. Use the promo code Broncos18 at the new papajohns.com.
For our Players' Choice Pizzas, we made the NFL players' favorite pizzas. Now you can eat like an NFL player.
If I can eat like a football player, I can talk like one. I can work out like one. I can even dress like one.
Look, you can eat the pizza. You just can't steal my shorts.
Up your game with any large specialty pizza, including Players' Choice Pizzas. Only $12 each.
Better ingredients, better pizza.
Better football.
At the new papajohns.com.
Longtime radio talk show host, and as I said, voice of the Mountain West Conference, does a lot of their weekly shows, and is now on The Fan on Saturdays, 11 to 1 tomorrow.
10 to 1:30 this Saturday.
10 to 1:30.
Tell your friends.
So, yeah, while you're, there's no games on Saturday. I don't know, I watch college football on Saturday.
It's college basketball season, Woody.
Yeah.
It's that time of year.
Who do you like, by the way? It's wide open as far as I mean, Kansas. There have been 5 number 1 teams. I want Monmouth to win because I want to see their bench. But Oklahoma has just gotten beaten at Iowa State. Duke has lost to 3 ranked teams. That hadn't happened since 68, 69. Kentucky has struggled during the course of the season. I think that there's more parity this year than I've seen in a long time.
I have a certain affinity for Oklahoma because their coach, Lon Kruger, was the coach at my alma mater, the University of Illinois, when I was in college. Therefore, I am a bit of an OU fan this season, and also because my alma mater is atrocious. They got killed by Indiana
could Kansas,
last night.
and we'll get back to the Broncos, could Kansas and Oklahoma both be number 1 seeds?
They could be. It could happen.
Who has the edge on Sunday and why? And we're going to do this in rapid-fire fashion. Passing game.
Patriots. Final answer.
I can't. You want to phone a friend?
I'm going to go with New England on this one.
You want to get out of the cab and ask somebody on the street in New York City?
I like Brady and Gronkowski here in the passing game.
Okay, let me follow up with that. 300 yards, over, under.
Ooh, you know what? Make mine the under, because only one guy has thrown for 300 yards against the Broncos this year, and he did it twice, Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah,
so make mine the under.
I'm actually thinking he's going to be right at the 300-yard mark.
Yeah.
And if it's, do you know who threw against the Patriots for 400 yards in a playoff game not long ago?
In 2013, in the AFC Championship game, 32 of 40 with 2 touchdowns. That's number 18.
Running game.
He ain't doing that this week, by the way.
We're both in agreement that the passing game edge goes to the Patriots.
Yes.
They have short passing game. That's what the Broncos have. They have more effective. They have a better tight end. I'm going to just add on to what you said.
Yeah.
Much better tight end. The Broncos are going to get no effort out of, or no service out of Vernon Davis. Virgil Green, I'd like to see in the offense more often. They must not.
He's effective when they throw him the ball.
Yeah. It's like they don't want, they're afraid of that he's not going to be. He was supposed to be the blocking tight end.
He is.
And they won't use him in
they
that
don't use him
situation.
as that.
You know, and Daniels can't get free. So you got the advantage there. The Broncos don't have a slot receiver like Wes Welker. They don't have Brandon Stokely. They don't have Edelman. They don't have a slot receiver. And that was those two areas, tight end and slot receiver, were so important to Peyton Manning throughout his career. And without them, he really is stuck with 2 outside wide receivers. And you hope that Norwood
throwing outside the numbers isn't what he does well right now.
Running game. You were talking about, let's follow up on that, that we assume, but we can't put it past Belichick, that they won't try to run the football more, but they don't have
a running game.
The bruiser that they've had in the past in the playoffs.
They're very banged up at that position. I mean, again, running game, I'm going to give it to the Broncos because they actually attempt to do that versus New England, who they don't even acknowledge that running the football can happen. So running game, I will give it to the Broncos, even though their running game is hit or miss at best.
Okay, we talked about the defense earlier, but put you on the spot. So the defense has a better game, even though he might throw for 300 yards. Will the Broncos defense actually be dominant over the Patriots defense? They don't play against each other, but will it be better?
Yeah, they're a better defense. The Broncos have a better defense. The Broncos have the best defense in the league up front. What Malik Jackson and Derek Wolfe have become, I think they're a couple of very, very good players, and both are. I mean, Wolfe's already rich, and Malik's about to be rich. The pass rush, I'd like to see a little bit more out of DeMarcus Ware. Perhaps this week. I know he had the fumble recovery, but I'd like to see him a little more disruptive in terms of the pass rush. I love the inside linebackers. I think Trevathan and Marshall are very good. The secondary worries me because of the injury to Chris Harris, but with Darian Stewart and TJ Ward back healthy, and I think that you're going to see the Broncos get back heavily into man this week. It was a lot of zone last week, and the group didn't look comfortable out there doing that.
And Roby's not a man-on-man guy. He's a safety playing cornerback.
That's fair.
So if you're going to put him in, he's going to be an all-pro safety. I think he'll be a Pro Bowl safety at some point, makes big plays, but he's not a cover corner guy.
No.
And that's the problem is he's okay as a nickel cornerback. You really need Chris Harris Jr. to not be one-armed in the game. I mean, it doesn't work for cornerbacks or paper hangers.
The way that they use, and the way they set this up on third downs, where they typically move Harris inside to the slot, they put Roby outside, but against this Broncos pass rush and Von Miller, typically a quarterback, he doesn't have a bunch of time to be looking around on third down. So Roby's lack of coverage sometimes gets neutralized there, and you kind of cover up that weakness.
Offense, defense, we've talked about. I don't trust the special teams.
I don't either.
I saw McManus make 5 field goals. None of them determined the game.
Did you feel confident, though, when he's back there? All of a sudden, he's gotten shaky, and New England's got the best kicker in the game. Might be the best kicker of all time.
Yeah, but what's funny about McManus, he set the NFL record for postseason 5 field goals in a postseason game. Colquitt, I thought, punted extremely well, and Pittsburgh's punter didn't. But you can't trust either of them based on more than a small sampling of one game. I think the advantage goes to the Patriots there. Omar Bolden was the Broncos' threat to run. He's out.
Now we're talking Jordan Norwood, Emmanuel Sanders, maybe some Shiloh Ko back there. I mean, Omar Bolden was the guy, and he never struck anyone as great, but he was the guy because you could trust him.
Yeah, but on the other side, once again, the Patriots lost a game because they fumbled a football in the fourth quarter in Denver. But they tend, I think also, we're talking about they don't care about the running game. They don't care about the return game. They would rather balls be floating down the field and have Edelman try and spear somebody at the end zone. And
But that's what you do when Tom Brady is your quarterback. I mean, when Trendon Holiday was the returner here in Denver, and he was dangerous, he could break big plays. But he would also cough the ball up, and that's the greatest sin that you can have when Peyton Manning is great like he was just a couple of years ago. So if you're New England, your job as the return man is catch the ball, make sure that Brady gets it.
I'm going to give you a stat before we go to break, and I'm not a big stat guy, but Marino in his last 17 games threw 9 touchdowns and 16 interceptions. Brett Favre in his last 7 games had 9 touchdowns and 17 interceptions. Peyton Manning this year has thrown for 9 or 10 touchdowns and 17 interceptions.
Yeah, 9 and 17.
And there's something interesting when you consider that all 3 of them went downhill so quickly in regard to their ability.
It's a nasty game, isn't it?
Marino was awful at the end of his career. Brett Favre that last year wasn't very good, and Peyton's skill level has diminished.
And all 3 of them basically Frankensteins at the end. I mean, they're patched together.
James Harrison, and I couldn't get it into my column. It came out late, and you know about the quote sheets, and I saw James Harrison say, they got beat by Peyton Manning above the neck.
Above the neck.
And it was kind of funny. He had those neck surgeries.
Totally agreed with him.
Cooney Lexus of Greenwood Village is Colorado's #1 volume Lexus dealer, conveniently located at I-25 in Bellevue. View the current specials and a large selection of new and certified pre-owned vehicles online at Greenwood Village. Cooney Lexus of greenwoodvillage.com. I've had 5 consecutive Lexuses. I will continue to have them. If you haven't had one, at least it's worth going and looking at Cooney Lexus of Greenwood Village.
Hello, my name is Greg Stone, President and General Manager, and I would like to personally thank you for making Cooney Lexus of Greenwood Village the #1 Lexus dealer in Colorado.
Cooney Lexus of Greenwood Village for exceptional customer service and world-class amenities. Take in the beauty of the Rocky Mountains from our rooftop patio. Relax while enjoying a movie in our premium theater. This is the ultimate luxury car buying experience. Visit Cooney Lexus of Greenwood Village or Cooney Lexus of Colorado Springs. Click CooneyLexus.com.
Nate Kreckman with us, and this is an interesting question in the middle of going into the AFC Championship, but I've heard rumors and I've talked to Peyton, and I'm curious to get, because you have been always frank in your feelings, what do you think Peyton's going to do next year?
Ooh.
I'm going to give you, and Twitter, we put this out on Twitter. We want to get people's tweets, and we'll have them back later, but I'm going to give you some options.
All right.
You can either give me one or give them in the order you think they will happen.
Okay.
#1 would be, it's been talked about. There's unstable ownership since the death of the owner of the Tennessee Titans, that Peyton Manning will go back to Tennessee and either run for governor or become involved in the ownership and be the John Elway of the Tennessee Titans. That's #1. He'll retire, and he's got young twins. He'll spend time with them. He'll relax. They have homes in Chattanooga, in Miami Beach, in Colorado, that they'll wander around and travel and relax, and he'll do commercials. #3, go into broadcasting, because he's done Saturday Night Live. He, as you well know, you've been here throughout his career, he says a lot without saying anything.
Yes.
That's a fair way to say it.
Yes.
He'll return to the Broncos, play quarterback for Houston.
Ooh.
Of all of those, what would you put as #1? What do you think he's going to do?
Okay, process of elimination. Retire and do nothing. Don't buy that. This is Peyton Manning we're talking about. I think he's too manic. He's one of those guys that has to do something all the time. So retire and do nothing. I'm just going to go ahead and cross that off. Go into broadcasting. If anything, maybe he would do that simply for the fact of that's an easy gig to do for 1 year. I'm in broadcasting. It's simple. Trust me, anybody can do it. So I'll put that on my list.
And I'll just throw in, Archie has done it for much of his career of his life since he got out of it. He was a color analyst for the New Orleans Saints after he ended his career.
Okay. Play quarterback for Houston is interesting. The other name that I keep hearing is Cleveland because how close he is to ownership there and because their quarterback situation.
Can I respond to that? I'll
Sure.
just do it, and I'll jump into each one of these.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. He's not going to play in cold weather. Everybody talks about under 40 degrees. If he were going to play again, it would be to duplicate what you did, Nate, earlier throughout your career, was to play indoors in a controlled environment.
In a division that he knows.
With a team that's got a good defensive team.
Okay. But I don't think he's going to be back in football. I think his foot's exploding on him. Return to the Broncos, so just go ahead and cross that one off completely.
That's not going to happen.
Best bet is he jumps into the front office game with Tennessee. I think that is. I'll go ahead and circle that one. That's what I'll put my money on.
I think ultimately, he'll take some time off. I think he'll want to be like a lot of other retired athletes, is they'll want to back off for a while. But I think he's going to. His wife is involved in the ownership of the Memphis Grizzlies. They are very close to still Tennessee. That I think he is like John Elway. He's got a lot of big plans in his life. John got involved in the internet. He got involved in ownership of.
I hear this internet thing's catching on.
It didn't catch on for him and Michael Jordan and Wayne Gretzky when they formed a partnership to sell sports stuff on. I've talked to Wayne about that. That never worked at all for the three of them. But I would guess that he will be involved in the ownership of the Tennessee Titans.
Okay.
And they have a sort of interim president. They really don't know what they're doing there. They're bringing Malarkey back. I think he'll end up, this will be where he goes, is back to Tennessee. He is so popular there that he'll be the owner, GM, executive vice president of the Titans, and then he'll springboard from that into being governor.
What a mess they are. They hired Mike Malarkey.
Yeah.
It's his third head coaching job. He's never coached in a playoff game.
That's Malarkey, isn't it? But he's Hall of Famer.
It's a load of Malarkey.
We'll have a news break with Molly Hughes. We'll come back with Nate Kreckman and you in just a moment.
Hello, I'm Molly Hughes in the Denver Post newsroom. The woman accused of attacking Denver's fire chief had no connection to the city's top firefighter. That, according to investigators today. Marlene Zakovich Rodriguez is being held without bond. Police say she jumped into the fire chief's unmarked SUV and began stabbing him. Chief Eric Tade was driving near department headquarters at Colfax and Spear Tuesday afternoon when the suspect allegedly flung open the passenger side door of the moving vehicle and stabbed Chief Tade multiple times. He was treated at the hospital for wounds to his hand and leg, and he's now recovering at home. Investigators say the 42-year-old woman has no connection to the chief, and they do not know what her motive was. Zakovich Rodriguez has a criminal record dating back 20 years that includes domestic violence, assault, and disturbing the peace. She'll face a judge tomorrow on this latest case. Chief Eric Tade has been with Denver Fire for 24 years, the last 6 as the chief.
Nate Kreckman of The Fan, ESPN. Well, we were both employed by the same umbrella company.
We were, yes.
ESPN for years. How long have you been in radio in Denver, Colorado?
Since 2004 was when I started as a producer. Yes. And I've been doing it that long.
You even produced for my good friend Gil Wiley.
I did for a while, yes.
One of our favorite segments, Trending Now, and we have a visitor. Who are you and why are you here?
My name is Hugh Johnson. I'm a digital sports producer with the Denver Post, and this is What's Trending Now. We do the whole flash.
That was good. I like that.
That's great.
What do you got?
Guys, the Rockies outfielder Kyle Parker was designated for assignment Wednesday, clearing room for on the 40-man roster for Gerardo Parra, who was officially signed last Tuesday.
Yes.
And so, is this just another example of the Rockies' failed draft and development? He was once a top prospect for the team.
Well, they drafted 2 quarterbacks.
They did. Doesn't seem like either of them's working out. Well, one of them is for the Seahawks.
Yeah, one of them turned into a Super Bowl winning Kyle Parker was never a player. He was a guy they kept trying to do. They would only bring him up in emergency situations, and he came up last year, not this past season, but 2 seasons ago, and he hit 0 for the month of September. He just was never that good a player. I don't think Russell Wilson would have been that good a player either in baseball.
No, he would have been a light-hitting infielder, I think is what he would have been. He chose the right career, absolutely. Yeah, the Kyle Parker thing, that's disappointing. I mean, they thought highly of him. We heard good things about him. I mean, he's a long way away, to the point where they brought in Mark Reynolds.
Yeah, he's never going to be a factor in baseball. I think he, unlike someone who just played for the Pittsburgh Steelers who said he should have chosen baseball, Kyle Parker should have chosen football.
All right, guys. Broncos cornerback Chris Harris was at practice today despite the shoulder injury. We're not sure how much he's going to play on Sunday or what his role is going to be. Are you worried about the Broncos secondary?
Heck yeah, I am. Well, how could you not be? Because Chris Harris is the anchor of their secondary. You have to have him. And here's a little underrated thing maybe. Chris Harris, Woody, have you ever seen a corner that can blow up the bubble screen better than Chris Harris can? I mean, his recognition of it, his break on the football. Right. I think I saw him whiff on a bubble screen once all year. I mean, he is to the football. New England does so much of that. Screens. If he can't hit somebody, I really do worry about the secondary.
Well,
the Chris Harris thing concerns me.
He can't press defense in the first 5 yards.
Can't use his hands.
Really hurts. So he can't. He said he couldn't tackle last week. You could see that he was just dragging the arm. He was like Roethlisberger the week before. I think he'll probably take an injection and try his best to get through it. I don't think they'll succeed if they can only play him on third down, because the other point that I think is really important is they have a lot of good players, a lot of great players on defense, but they don't have a lot of great leadership on defense. Brandon Marshall's trying to do that role, DeMarcus Ware, but what happens is those guys have to worry more about themselves than actually being leaders on the field, and that's happened with Ward and the problems he's had this year. Stewart lately, DeMarcus Ware out of the lineup, Brandon Marshall out of the lineup. Von Miller's not a leader. We were talking about it earlier. I would really love to see them move Von Miller all over the line, because what's happening is his teams are really chipping on him. Yeah. They're creating real problems for him to actually put any rush on the passer.
All right, guys, and my colleague Joe Wynn, he's a big Madden NFL football guy. He did a prediction and a simulation. Under Peyton Manning, the Patriots win this AFC Championship game 4 out of 5 times. Under Brock Osweiler, the Broncos win. He only ran that one once. But my thoughts were, if Manning struggles, should the Broncos hesitate to put in Osweiler?
Sounds like Joe skewed the sample size here a little bit. There are serious flaws in this research. Well, I did it once with Brock and he won, so I was done. With Peyton, though, I checked it 5 times.
Maybe that's not right.
I just
poking holes in this.
I just want to take one point with that, and I've gotten this, and I've said this week. I've gotten it from a really good source that it's a torn MCL, and so that's why. I would have put him in last week in spots. If I were Gary Kubiak, I would announce if he could play and say we're going to use him in spots.
Give New England
that
something
way
to think
you
about.
wouldn't have. Well, and do it, but you wouldn't have the crowd erupt one way or the other and say, because I have maintained, and I called to Manweiler, that you're going to have to use both of them.
Right.
But I think his injury's a lot worse than what they're letting on.
If he can't move, he loses his value. He loses his advantage over Peyton. Peyton, to the James Harrison quote from the neck up, yeah, you give that to Peyton, the experience, postseason, composure, all those things that he has at this time of year. Brock Osweiler, what does he have? He can move and he has an arm. Well, if you take one of those two away, he doesn't add very much value over Peyton Manning. You got to play Peyton over Osweiler.
So again, who are you and how do people get in touch with you?
All right. My name is Hugh Johnson. I'm a digital sports producer with the Denver Post. You can find me on Twitter at HughJohnsonDP, and this has been What's Trending Now.
Thanks, Hugh. Live guest, and we include him in this, appear courtesy of Papa John's. The day after every Avalanche victory, get 50% off the regular menu price, and you've been able to get that more often lately. The online orders use the promo code Ive, the man from Ives. Avs at the new papajohns.com.
When the Avs win, you win at Papa John's. All season long, the day after every Avs win, you get 50% off your regular menu price online order at papajohns.com by entering promo code AVS. That's right. Just enter promo code AVS online at papajohns.com the day after every Avs win for 50% off your entire online order.
Better ingredients, better pizza, Papa John's.
Citywide Banks presents Four on the Floor, and this is Nate's first time on the hot seat of this. 30
I'm excited.
seconds.
Good.
You will get shot if you don't get finished in 30 seconds. Should Josh Gordon be allowed back in the NFL?
Yes.
He's applying for reinstatement.
Josh Gordon should be allowed back in the NFL. He didn't kill anybody. He smoked weed. Guess what? If they kicked everybody out of the NFL that smoked marijuana, there wouldn't be many guys left in the NFL. So I'm going to say yes, Josh Gordon should be allowed back in the NFL. Obviously, there's restrictions in place, and if he's a dope like he has been, then suspend him again.
But the problem's going to be, Nate, that yes, he's allowed back, but he would not show up for testing and stuff like that. He is now way into the system. Von Miller got into the system, had some issues. Now Josh Gordon is facing, yes, they should reinstate him, but the next time he's going to face even more time away from the game. It would be one of those double secret probation for 2 or 3 years kind of deals.
So that being said, if Josh Gordon is reinstated into the NFL, Woody, should the Broncos take a look at him?
No, I don't think so. I think you got to hope at some point that Cody Latimer takes another step. We haven't seen it so far. You've got Demaryius under contract. You got Emmanuel for another 2 years that you have control of him. I think that you're going to have to find somebody else. Norwood hadn't been the player I expected him to be. They still need a slot receiver. I think there's a kid. Manning also agrees with me. They've got a guy on the practice squad in Jordan Taylor.
Sunshine.
That I think is going to be a player in this league and is going to be a type of Wes Welker, Brandon Stokely kind of player.
Yeah, you already have enough concern every single day whether or not Von Miller is going to be able to pass his drug test. So should the Broncos take a look at him if he is reinstated? No, they don't need anything to do with Josh Gordon. Let a team that is more desperate go down that road.
Here we are, a month away from catchers and pitchers reporting. Are the Rockies backed in their corner where we're going to see them sign another Cal Kendrick type this year? Are they going to make a deal for, now they got Para, are they going to make a deal for Cargo to get a frontline pitcher?
I don't think anybody is going to trade a frontline pitcher for Carlos Gonzalez. Why would you? Pitching is at a premium in the game today. It is just so valuable. The strikeout rates are so high. You need to have good pitching. I don't see anybody giving up any sort of frontline starter to get Carlos Gonzalez, and he was excellent last year, but can you trust him to stay healthy? Can you trust him to pay him what's left on his contract? No, I don't think a sane team trades a frontline starter for Carlos Gonzalez.
Sitting here today, the Rockies are worse than they were last year, worse than they were the year before. Tulowitzki's gone. They got a shortstop that is probably going to be suspended for a considerable amount of time. They can't get rid of him. They're paying him as much as they did Troy Tulowitzki. This is a team that thinks that Chad Bettis and 4 or 5 of their youngsters, they're just going to throw them out there and hope that they put together a bullpen, which they didn't have last year. No, they're not going to get a big-time pitcher. Another opportunity's gone by, and Bridich, to me, is acting like his predecessor of, I'm the smartest man in the room. Well, show us some of that IQ if that's the case.
Chad Bettis might be good this year.
He could be.
I am optimistic for Chad Bettis if John Gray and
13, 14 games.
Okay.
But that's still not ace type. Finally, the National League is seriously considering the DH. You in favor of that?
I am 100% for it. And I grew up a National League fan. I grew up under the belief that you are to both play defense with a glove on your hand and you are to go and bat, and that is what being a baseball player is. But the way that pitchers are developed, they do not learn to hit. It is a gigantic waste of time to send these guys to the plate. They don't practice it. They don't know what they're doing. They're not good at it. They can't even bunt anymore. So, you know what? At this point, I've thrown up my hands. Designated hitter in the National League. We need it across both leagues. It's also stupid that two leagues play with different rules, and they play each other every single week. There is an interleague series, and depending on where you are, the rules get skewed, and certain teams have advantages. Yeah, DH to the National League.
I was on a St. Louis station today where their number one sport is the Super Bowl coming up, AFC Championships. Bernie Miklasz, who's been my friend for a long time, says, so let me ask you about the designator, because that's what they're talking about.
Well,
in St.
they
Louis.
kind of got burned by the NFL this week.
Yeah.
I understand.
I loved it. I was like you. I grew up as a National League guy, and it's time to enter the new millennium.
Yeah.
That everything else about double switches and bunting and stuff like that. But a great point was made by Bernie today that American League teams have a edge in signing veteran free agents because they know they can pay an extra 2 years because they can use a guy as a DH.
David Ortiz couldn't have played in the National League the last 5 years.
Sure. So when you say to a guy, you're our first baseman, you're gonna become a designated hitter. In the last 2 years, the National League can't do that. So, Four on the Floor is sponsored by Citywide Banks, a family-owned, Colorado-focused business bank with 12 locations across Denver and Boulder. Drive by one every day. You should too, and stop in. We bank with Citywide Banks. They offer over 25 services for your personal banking, your business banking, and they're a supporter of more than 150 Colorado charities. Citywide Bank.
I am Citywide Banks.
I am Citywide Banks.
At Citywide Banks,
we put you first by exceeding your service expectations every day.
Every day.
When you go to buy a car, what do you really want? You probably want a lot of cars to choose from. And you want the dealership's best price. Not some starting price or target price, the best price. And you want it immediately, not after hours of negotiating. And you want a salesperson who doesn't get paid more if you spend more. Because, well, you don't want to spend more. Well, you're in luck. John Elway wants all of those things too. Better yet, John Elway wants you to have all of those things too. Come see us or click on johnelwaychevrolet.com.
Nate and Woody on the Sports Show is sponsored by the Denver Post, and this is a segment I really enjoy every day, and you just said you think it's going to be fun. We pick 6 subjects, and today's the 6th, and I've gotten a hint of what you've done, and you approached it from an entirely different way, and I thought, well, that's interesting. We took a subject, and we both looked at it from, so you're going to find out, the 6 best individual playoff performances for the Denver Broncos in their history. This is excluding the Super Bowl. That's not Terrell Davis going berserk in the first Super Bowl victory by the Broncos. This is in playoffs, best individual performances. We'll start with me. Tom Jackson. I'm going back, because I can, to 1977, and I was looking for a defensive performance. And what I found by doing my research, and I went through every playoff game, was the defenses have tended to be a bunch of different things happening by different players, not some guy dominating a game. Even true somewhat on offense. Tom Jackson in 1977 against the Pittsburgh Steelers had 8 tackles, he had a fumble recovery, and he had an interception. And both of those led to touchdowns. They beat Pittsburgh 34-21, but Tom Jackson had a big-time game and was involved knocking down passes. They didn't have the same advanced statistics.
I think you have to have somebody from that defense on this list. That's a good choice.
Number 5, Peyton Manning. We mentioned it earlier. Threw for 400 yards, 2 touchdowns against New England. And that was a game that the Broncos won by 10, and that was Peyton's best playoff game since he's been here. Number 4, Tim Tebow. You got to put it on the list. And I was telling somebody last night, they said, Tim Tebow, he had his greatest game as a pro against the Pittsburgh Steelers in the overall. Not only did he connect with Demaryius Thomas, but he ran for a touchdown. He threw for another he threw for a touchdown. He ran for 50 yards in the game, and he threw for 316 yards. That was a hell of a performance for Tim Tebow. He can take that to the bank and take that to his legacy. Terrell Davis against Jacksonville. I wanted to get Terrell Davis on this list, and I looked for one. 1997, he ran for 184 yards. This was the revenge game against Jacksonville, the revenge tour that year. They won the Super Bowl that year, and I wanted to get him on the list. 11 yards receiving, and he ran for 2 touchdowns.
Picking TD's best playoff game is not an easy thing because he was pretty good in every playoff game he played.
John Elway against Cleveland in 1988. This was a game they won here. He threw for 281 yards. That was rare for him. He didn't really go beyond 250 yards in playoff games. He ran for 36 yards. He had 3 touchdowns with an interception. That was his best touchdown game, and that was a game they won here on a fumble recovery. And number 1, 1987, the drive. He only threw for 1 touchdown. He had 1 interception.
It's kind of an important touchdown.
It's about 300 yards rushing and throwing.
So the way that I compiled my list is, and as I mentioned earlier in the show, Woody, I have covered the Broncos since 2004. Therefore, I focused only on recent Broncos history, just the history since I've been covering the team. So I have at number 6. You left out special teams, Woody.
Wow, and this one, when I saw it, I thought, that's a great point.
2012 divisional playoff. Of course, everybody remembers that as the Raheem Moore game, Peyton throwing across his body, trying to hit Stokely, interception in overtime. But what you may forget is that Trindon Holliday had a 90-yard punt return for a touchdown. That was in the first quarter. And then the opening kickoff of the second half, a 104-yard kickoff return, put the Broncos back in the lead, kept them in that game because they were not looking good early, especially in the first half. Champ Bailey getting roasted by Torrey Smith. But Trindon Holliday makes my list. Number 5 on my list, I got 2 defensive players on my list. But AFC Championship game, the Peyton Manning game, which I'll get to in a moment, Terrence Knighton had a sack of Tom Brady on 4th and 3, deep in Denver territory, late. I mean, if New England scores right there, and they got some late touchdowns in that game, but I mean, they're right back in it with a full quarter to go, and you start getting nervous about Tom Brady. Terrence Knighton moved faster than I've ever seen a 360, 370-pound man move, and he sacked Tom Brady on that play. That was critical. So pot roast is on my list. Number 4, I've got Manning in that AFC Championship game, the 400-yard game. He was stellar that day, 32 of 43. Isn't it sad to remember how accurate he used to be just a couple of years ago? Number 3 on my list, I've got the Tebow game. Same game that game against Pittsburgh, 10-21, 316, couple of touchdowns, rushed for 50 yards. One spot ahead of him, the guy who caught that 80-yard touchdown, who actually did all the work with the stiff arm, Demaryius Thomas, 4 catches, 204 yards, and 1 touchdown. I know a lot of people like to call that the Tebow game, Woody. I call it that Demaryius Thomas game for what he did. Also the Dick LeBeau game for putting 10 in the box on that play. Clueless. And then number 1 on my list, best playoff performance that I have seen in my time covering the team, Champ Bailey. Against New England, divisional round 2005, the 100-yard interception return. I believe Brady was trying to hit Troy Brown. Champ Bailey picked it off, returned it 100 yards. It was Ben Watson who had the angle. Champ ran out of gas at the very end. Ben Watson smacked him. Champ lost the football. Bill Belichick to this day swears that ball went across the pylon, that should have been a touchback. Instead, the Broncos hung on to the football. Mike Anderson scored the next play. But that, to me, second greatest moment in playoff history at Sports Authority Field to the Tebow to Demaryius Thomas.
I've heard Tim Bailey indicate that Belichick was right.
I think he was. Why do you think that Bill Belichick is fighting for goal line cams, for pylon cams every year in front of the competition committee, and he keeps getting told that the NFL can't afford it? The NFL, hard on their luck, you know?
Nate Kreckman, thank you for joining us. You can see him on all over the place, but you could listen to him on The Fan. Again, tell him the times on this coming Saturday.
This Saturday I'll be on 10 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. on 104.3 The Fan.
And if the Broncos do win, I'm sure you'll follow up with that the next week with a lot leading up to the Super Bowl with The Fan. And I wanted to mention, because I set this up at the beginning, so when you told the Boston radio station on Wednesday, What do you think is going to happen?
I said 27-23. I think that the Patriots are going to win this game. I just cannot trust this inept offense and old Peyton Manning.
Hey, thanks for coming in and
thanks,
spending time with us. Come back, and if you'll do it again, we'll invite you. That wraps it up for the day. You can get us on our YouTube channel. You can go to our iTunes podcast. You'll be all over the place. Our Facebook page, woodypage.com, denverpost.com. Yeah, you can watch us whenever you want to. If you want to see this show again, you want to hear his prediction one more time so you can laugh at it, you can do that. We'll be back again tomorrow with Mark Kisla from 2 to 3, but you can find us all over the place and look for the clips throughout the stories on denverpost.com. Stay tuned for Molly Hughes coming up with the news. For the entire staff, John and Madison and Don and Nate, I'm Woody Page. Have a great afternoon.
Hello, I'm Molly Hughes in the Denver Post newsroom with news that the local housing market has struck again. This time it's being blamed for driving up inflation along the Front Range. New data released by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics indicates a 1.4% increase in the Consumer Price Index for Denver, Boulder, and Greeley. This is for the second half of 2015. That is on top of the 2.7% spike that registered in the second half of 2014. Housing costs, both to rent and own a home, spiked 5.8% over the same period. That's one of the biggest rates in the country. Food costs were unchanged. Energy costs dropped 19%, led by cheaper prices to gas up your car and a drop in the cost to heat your home with gas. If you take food and gas out of this mix, core inflation was 3.5%.